Boris Schwnecke, educator, sculptor, and artist, is with us today. Thank you very much for your time. I would like to start by asking, since we're sitting in the sculpture studio, could you tell a few words about the subjects that you are conducting, Polish-Japanese?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm providing sculpture lessons in the Polish-Japanese Academy of Information Technologies. And it's a kind of basic lesson in the first years. There are on the Polish path, there are lessons with Professor Roman Pisarchik and Art and Dmitry. And on the English path, there are lessons with Anna Barlik and me. And we're trying to show some basic elements in thinking of special forms, which can be helpful also working later in the field of computer technologies.
And I would assume that because the subject is considered quite handicraft, something that is very opposite to even the name of the Academy, Information Technology, why do you think this subject like this is important for young artists to discover, to work on?
Yes, okay. Normally when we are looking films or if someone is playing computer games, we have the impression of space, of spatial forms, but on a flat screen. So I think to work with sculpture is also a very important experience which can be helpful later in working in the field of computer technologies. And besides, normally today many people are working especially with computers, and not so much with hands, but it's a kind of tradition, it's a kind of starting point, it's a kind of roots, let's say, of the discipline of sculpture. Sculpture is something very specific, it's something very high, archaic, you're working really with hands. So the activities of a sculpture didn't have changed too much in the last 3,000 years, materials of this. But it's the same thing, it's a material, this is the hands, some basic tools, and this is very good.
No deny that sculpture and working with hands definitely improves your ability to think in space, think in forms, and later work better in digital, in 3D, for example, or illustrate.
For sure, I'm convinced that I can help to work with sculptures, to make something with hands. I think it can help to understand some, let's say, general rules, some general basics in regard to also making projects, sculpture projects.
And I think that a lot of the times people were thinking about sculpture, they think about clay, plasticine, but even in the studio here we have a lot of works done from paper, and maybe you can tell a bit about more what you try to tell your students and how to work and how to create things with paper, and maybe you can even show work if you're a student, right?
Some projects from students from the first year. As you remember, we made something similar. This is a white version. We also have here a black version, and why paper? In my opinion, paper is a very good material. It's something very simple, something of everyday life. We're working all the time with paper, and a piece of paper, a piece of A4 paper, is something very flat, let's say, and it's a very good exercise to modify a piece of paper in that way that we have a kind of special forms. Maybe you remember from our lessons the exercise to make a sculpture from one piece of A4 paper, and then it's something nice, something very easy, but also very difficult.
I think that people underestimate what can be done with paper because it's overlooked as a material. It's very simple and very beautiful, very volumetric. Things can be created with it. And those exercises for sure introduce challenges, as you said, one piece of paper for a whole sculpture, but it shows in which direction your creative approach can go in a great way.
It is. Of course, here I use more than one piece of paper, but it's a task which is very clear. It's only paper, only white materials. Here the inspiration was forms which you can find in nature. And so you're not working with colors, so you're only working with forms and with light and shadows. And this is something very, very important. I think you got this.
Yeah, I love the results. I love the results from the paper part of the sculpture subject, and from sculpture and plasticine as well.
Yes.
On that topic, I want to know a bit more about your artistic professional background and how you ended up teaching in Poland.
Okay. But it's not so easy.
It's okay, we're here for it.
Because my way was not so directly. I'm from Berlin. I finished high school in Berlin. Later I started to study at the Technical University of Berlin. Urbanism and city planning. So urbanism and city planning is something connected with architecture, but more looking to the whole complex system of a city. So it's not only building, it's also thinking about environment, nature, public infrastructure, schools, and so on. But it's also kind of thinking about special forms, but special forms who are somehow connected with persons. But to be honest, it was very interesting, but to be honest, I never felt very much as a kind of urbanist. I always was interested in arts. I always liked to work with hands. So when I finished the studies of city planning, I was thinking of starting to work, but I wasn't so convinced. And then together with my wife, she's Polish, we decided, okay, maybe we start to try something here in Poland. And then we came to Warsaw, and I started to study again at the Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw. It's the sculpture department. And this was really a great time. I remember these times of studies. I like to think about this time.
This is a really, really nice story. And I'm glad that you were able to get to the point where you were able to connect your experience in art field with something that you like to do, to work with sculpture, work with hands. I guess it's also a good moment to ask you about why you like to teach, why you like being an educator, because in the creative field, in the academy, where students express in so many different ways, how do you approach education in such field?
I like to teach. I like to working at school. Why? It's a good. It's something beautiful somehow. Because, as I told, I remember the times of my studies in a very nice way. I like it. It was a great pleasure for me to study. I had the feeling to be free somehow, to realize also my own ideas. So I liked very much the studies. And also it's nice to study together, to see what other persons are doing, to talk about the projects. And later when you finish school, that's a kind of difficult moment, because an artist normally is a little bit working by himself. Yes, so normally you're sitting in your studio, you're working, you're alone with your thoughts, with your ideas. Of course, you can speak, you can meet other friends, other artists, you can organize exhibitions and to show you things, but normally the work is something you're a little bit alone. And that's something good. That's something good because it's important for thinking sometimes to be alone. So I like sometimes to be alone. I like to work by my own, let's say. But there are some moments that I feel, okay, I have to go out. I have to speak with others. Maybe I want to try to tell something, and I think that it's a very nice way also to look what you were. I remember our lessons also that, and it was for me very nice to see what you was doing. That we spoke about the projects. I tried to show something what maybe is possible to do, and I understand this teaching process also is a kind of collaboration, and so I don't want to tell students, okay, you have to do in this in this way or in this way. Yes, but it's nice to say, okay, that's good, that's great, but try to do it in this way. Yes, and see if you will satisfy it or not. Yes, so for me it's nice. Not to decide in which direction the student is going, but to show more possibilities. Yes, so maybe try this, and then go your own way.
I have such positive memories from our classes, honestly, and I think from your explanation, the reason why the memories are so good, because you were approaching those classes as a collaboration, as an opportunity to communicate with us, and they were really relaxed. And that's what makes a great lesson in a field that is very unusual to a lot of students, where they might feel a bit uncomfortable because they're not used to working with such means. But those lessons were really, really great.
So I'm very happy.
I also think it's a good moment to show the works that students did during the plasticine part of the
study. We spoke about the beginning and paper. Later we continue normally with works who are a little bit more connected to the world of films, animated films, computer games. So with fields which are for many students interesting. And one task is, or the main task is to create a hero for a computer game or an animated film. And that's something great. I think it's not so traditional. Traditional sculptures the Academy of Fine Arts are doing a little bit different projects.
And it was so great because we had the opportunity to choose anything we would like to do, as long as it can be volumetric. We were allowed to make any wild ideas with the techniques that we never had the opportunity to try before in sculpture. I think, and the works are very detailed, very exquisite.
Yes.
It's really, really great.
Very different works. And as you remember, also the works is very different. Many works with plasticine, but not only. There was also different works, and some students created their own heroes. Some was, let's say, recreating also existing heroes, and which is also a good exercise.
People were even making plushies. So it was even at that point, yeah.
Yes. So because it's also a good exercise for the future, because in the 19th century artists was drawing antique sculptures. So also this is also in moments where it's not so creative, because there was repeating something with exists. So it's a kind of good manual exercise which will be a base for future products. And I think also during the lessons, also I think you can learn something which can be usable later.
Absolutely, I agree totally.
On projects.
And for now, I would like to close up with a section about the candidates for people who want to join the academy, because you are one of the professors who is conducting the interviews with these candidates. So maybe it would be great to know what qualities and what in general you're looking for in a student that wants to study at PJAIT.
That's a good question. I think, of course, there's not only one profile of students who are, let's say, good candidates. There are students who are more connected with traditional arts. There are candidates who are more connected with computer technologies. So the profile of the candidates can be different. But I think they should be visible, kind of interested in arts. Also in regard to the history of arts, it doesn't need to be a very detailed knowledge of history of art.
Should be understanding, general understanding.
It should be a kind of interest, and if someone can tell about the last exhibitions he has seen, she or he has seen, then it shows that there's a kind of a reflection. Also, we always, when we're working, have some reflections. Also, we have some masterpieces of art from the history in our mind, and it's very important to know, yes, what are, let's say, our roots somehow. Also, we were going in a different direction.
Great way to find qualities that make sure for you as a supervisor to understand that the student would be interested in studying.
Yes, and then I think candidates should be open to work with in different fields. Yes, because we have this traditional lessons, painting, drawing lessons with colors, pencils, sculpture lessons, also traditional graphics, and we have these lessons more connected with computer information technologies. So I think this is typical also for our students, and should be also important for our candidates, that they're often to work in different fields and to be open to search a good way.
As someone who is studying, as someone who had the interview and went through this process, I can say that yes, for sure, qualities like this are very important in the study, especially what you mentioned, the collaborating, being able to work with different means from traditional to digital. Lastly, I just want to ask you for some advice, your personal advice to younger artists, people who maybe want to express themselves in the means that are more traditional, like sculpture, but they might feel pressured to work in digital, or they might feel like this is a mean that requires a lot of years and years of studying. What would you propose to those people?
Okay. Of course, if we continue a little bit our conversation about the recruitment procedure, there's written very detailed what should be in the portfolio, drawings, paintings, photographies. And I think these things are important to try also these traditional technologies, yes, to even if it's difficult in the beginning, because 100 centimeter to 70 centimeters is a quite big size, and in the beginning it's quite hard to let's say, to work in this size. to show traditional drawings, to work with colors. That's not so easy, but I think this is important to go on. And if something doesn't work, it's important to try it again, to try different techniques. It's also in general for artists, it's important to have a kind of humility, that to understand, okay, not everything what I'm doing is perfect. Yes, it's understand also to have kind of critical attitude to the own works. Yes, if something doesn't work, then it's important not to think, okay, it's great, but to understand, okay, it's somehow important, but I can see, okay, it's not perfect. Yes, there are some things which could be done better. Yes, and that's a good starting point to go on to search something new. I think this kind of searching process is also important to have a critical attitude.
Thank you. I mean, this is how you see it, and it's a great advice, and I think a lot of younger artists would benefit from being able to critically look at their work.
Yes. And not only candidates, not only young ones, also something which is important for every artist, for every person to reflect somehow, to, if you do something, to have a look later to it, okay, how to go on, what's good, what's maybe not so good, what I can do different, and I think that's a good attitude and creation process.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure for us. Thank you for your time. We will be very happy to show a lot of the works from the studio. We really appreciate your time, and thank you again.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.